Welcome to Alaska Matters with Chris Story. To reach Chris, call 226-3933. 226-3933. Now, giving you something to talk about, here's Chris Story.
Harry Homesteader here with a message for all you new arrivals to Alaska. Don't try to change Alaska to be like where you came from. If it's so damn good back home, we invite you to return. Harry Homesteader, out.
And I'm Chris Story in Alaska Matters, and so do you. Welcome to the program. Today you'll hear from Representative Paul Seaton. He's seeking your vote. You're going to find out why. We're going to go deep inside the mind of Paul Seaton. Plus, you'll have an opportunity to win a Blackwater Bend coffee card for free during our Alaska Mind Bender. I want to send you out there for the greatest cup of coffee you'll ever have at Blackwater Bend for free. It's your opportunity to go today. You can go tomorrow. You can go whenever you want, but you have to text me the answer to our question at 299-7653. 299-7653. Just write that number down or program it into your phone and you get ready to send me a text at the appointed time. Hey, do you remember the energy that the country felt when Sarah Palin was nominated 2008 vice presidential candidate? I mean, literally, the country became electrified. And I have a theory. I think it was in part because she was unknown. Sarah Palin was and still is, a woman. But in major part, I think it's because she was an unknown woman from Alaska. Remember the now famous Katie Couric question, what do you read? Like we live in trees and igloos up here, like we don't have high-speed internet and access to the Wall Street Journal and every other single publication that's online or in print. That incensed me. What incensed me worse was her answer, which was, everything that's put in front of me? Well, she choked. Okay, we've forgiven her. But nevertheless, Alaska became front and center. It was right along stage. So you had there, right along stage, you had John McCain, you had Sarah Palin, and Alaska. I mean, really, it just was so exciting. So basically, I don't think, where I'm going with this is I don't think Wisconsin is going to amount to a hill of beans. I don't think we're going to see a bevy of reality shows about Wisconsin farmers and cheesemakers and cheeseheads. I just don't think we're going to see that. No, Alaska holds a special place in the heart of Americans and really the people the world over. And I understand why. If you would like to share a piece of Alaska with your family, your friends, people that you know out there in the blogosphere out there on Facebook, here's what I suggest you do. Go to homeralaska.org, homeralaska.org, and send them the link to that video that Brian Smith made at the direction of Monty Davis. That video exemplifies what Alaska is. As far as I'm concerned, it rekindles or can rekindle your spirit for Alaska. Share it with your friends, and when the Chamber of Commerce comes asking for money at the City Council, remember this video and the fact that it's taking off like wildfire. They are doing more with less constantly. Your Homer Chamber of Commerce doing a fantastic job to keep Alaska front and center in front of the country, just like when Sarah Palin was VP nominee. Anyway, I had to share that with you. I love that video. I've watched it a couple times. I've shared it on Facebook, sent it out there on Twitter. I suggest you do the same thing. It really is just a fantastic face forward for Alaska, and I think you'll enjoy that. Well, coming up, you'll go deep inside the mind, as promised, of Representative Paul Seaton, and you'll win major awards during our Blackwater Bend Mind Bender. Matters of importance are Alaska Matters.
Gregoire Construction can take care of that paving project you need done this summer with a paving crew available now. Already have pavement? Let Gregoire Construction protect your investment with an application of seal coating, extending the life of your asphalt and rejuvenating its appearance. Plus, now available, premium shredded topsoil. Call for a quote, 235-1522. 235-1522 for Gregoire Construction. 235-1522.
What's the first thing you turn to in the Homer News? Come on, you can tell me. Is it the police blotter that catches you first? Or how about that crazy cartoon? Or do you go straight for the letters to the editor to see what your wacky neighbors are up to? Well, the good news is there's no wrong answer. The Homer News can be consumed any way you like it, even online. homernews.com is updated daily. So this Thursday, whether you're alone or with somebody, get your copy of the Homer News and dive right in.
I'm Chris Story. You're listening to Alaska Matters. Today on the program, of course, Paul Seaton, your representative in Juneau, would like to go back. He's asking for the job back and looking for your vote in an upcoming primary election. His opponent, John Faulkner, he's been on the program before. You can go to our website, adventurealaskaradio.com, and you can find it there or connect with me on Facebook, and it's posted there as well. As will this program today. At the end of the day, we're recording it now, so you can go back and listen to this later. Blackwater Bend, Tip and I drove up to Soldotna on Sunday, and I use that tagline all the time that, Blackwater Bend, never leave Homer without it. I don't. I stop, and it almost doesn't matter. They're open so often. It just doesn't matter when your trip is planned for, because you're going to be able to find them open. I was thinking about their business model, and I was thinking if you're going to start a business in Alaska, that's the last location you would probably pick. But if you're going to start a business, I would exactly look at what Blackwater Bend has done with that location and with their business model, and I would seriously try to copy it. And in fact, I have implemented some of the things that I've learned from Pat and Blackwater Bend into my own business relative to customer service. You're treated like a friend, not a customer, when you go into Blackwater Bend. You drive through, they treat you like a real person and like a friend. You're not a widget. You're not just dollars and cents. You're their friend. And the other thing is top shelf quality. The atmosphere is upbeat and positive. Never, even on a rainy or a snowy day, you go through, they're extremely positive. So I really like the business model of Blackwater Bend, but I also extremely big fan of their actual product. So Blackwater Bend, halfway between Homer and Anchor Point, not your average trip. Here's your question. You can go to Blackwater Bend for free if you answer this correctly. Alaska Airlines apologized for alarming passengers with a handwritten note near a damaged portion of the tail wing of one of their jets. The note read what? A, we know about this. B, OMG, who did this? Or C, still safe to fly? They've apologized, Alaska Airlines has. What did they write on the tail wing? Was it, we know about this, OMG, who did this, or still safe to fly? Text your answer right now to 299-7653. Your name and answer. Please text me 7653. 299-7653. Representative Paul Seaton, welcome to Alaska Matters.
Oh, thanks. It's great to be on with you.
Hey, Paul, where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Oxnard, California, which is about halfway between Santa Barbara and Los Angeles.
I never would have pegged you for a Californian.
Well, you know how it is. People come to Alaska and fall in love with the place, and so as a college student, I came up here and transferred up to the University of Alaska and finished up here and been here ever since.
Wow. So what was it college that brought you here? I mean, why did you pick Alaska to attend college?
Well, actually, I came up here on a rock hounding expedition and between my sophomore and junior years, and had just, fell in love with the place. So came up here that next summer and got involved in a tree clearing business up in Anchorage, and right-of-ways for Chugach Electric and all, and then decided to transfer to the University of Alaska at Fairbanks, and they had openings, and that's where I went.
All right. And have you always been a political junkie? Is it just in your blood, in your nature, or did something lead you to politics later in life?
No, I wasn't really involved in politics at all until got, well along in life and felt the state was going wrong direction, and so threw my hat in the ring to take it a different way.
A friend of mine back in 2009, I guess it was, watched the election, and I'm not going to cast judgment on his opinion, but he saw the election of Barack Obama in 2008 as something that really inspired him and excited him, and he decided to throw his hat in the ring and run for an office, and he didn't win, but it made me realize that sometimes we do things based on what we see other people do, and there are those that we don't even know that inspire us. So I guess my question for you, Representative Paul Seaton, is there anybody that's inspired you politically that you maybe either modeled some of your beliefs or actions or the way you handle yourself in office after?
Well, I think, Jay Hammond is somebody I really looked up to, the way he organized things and the way he looked for the communities of Alaska to have a great share in the government.
Did you ever get a chance to meet him?
I didn't. I met Bella, but I didn't meet Jay, unfortunately, although his writings.
Okay, yeah, I have fond memories growing up here. I was born and raised here in Homer, and he was a figure of Alaska for a long time. So, one thing I hear, Paul, is that, and I don't know, maybe you've heard this yourself or you haven't, and if so, this might be a surprise, but I've heard some people say that maybe you're not Republican enough, or that you're a Republican by convenience because maybe you felt that was a better way to be elected and maybe hold office. And I guess if you've not heard it, I have, so let me ask you, how do you respond to that?
Well, I've been a Republican all my life. I interviewed then candidate Richard Nixon for vice president, and
no kidding,
California. Yeah, I had a personal interview with him.
Oh, wow.
Part of a school project, and so I've become a Republican, and been all my life. I mean, my opponent's been a Republican less than 6 months. So, I find it interesting to charge, but I do believe fully in working together with all people, and as a representative, I've represented all my constituents. The basic principle of the Republican Party, looking at individual rights, individual responsibilities, and individual accountability, that's something that's been a core principle of mine, and I've exercised that throughout my time in office.
So I guess maybe it's a philosophical difference between, I don't want to use the word extreme, but in other words, maybe it's conservatism that is called into question under the blanket of the Republican Party, and John Faulkner appears to be pitting himself as the more conservative choice. How do you respond to that? It's maybe you already have, but here's another opportunity.
Well, sure, and the thing is you have to look at what people propose to do, and, most of his proposals are big government proposals, whether you look at education, where he wants to propose a comprehensive curriculum and only the local districts and parents only having control of electives. I mean, that's, to me, not a conservative principle to take that choice and involvement away from the local district parents and put it in the hands of state government. You look at a number of issues like that. So it's, Alaska Coastal Zone Management is, the whole difference is it going to be big agencies control the whole process, which is what John is advocating, or my advocation is for local communities to have local plans and not the one-size-fits-all. If it's the federal government, then every state is treated exactly the same under their regulations, or if you're looking at the state agencies have one size of regulation and they have to cover everything in the state, and they don't take into account the differences between Kachemak Bay or the Kenai River and, Unalaska or Barrow, and there's significant differences, and that's what Coastal Zone allows to happen, is local involvement by local people, and that's what I support.
Interesting. Now, you've been in Juneau for coming up on 10 years?
Yes.
What role does conservatism play, as you see it, in the politics of Juneau? So we've got legislation that's either, maybe one could even say pro or con Alaskan, or we almost, I would think, have a little bit of an isolated circumstance in Juneau. That is it really, though, measured, I guess is my question, is it measured in conservative liberal, or do you find that those terms aren't necessarily applicable when you get to Juneau and start talking about bills?
Well, they're really not quite as applicable as most people think, because, a lot of issues are Alaskan issues, and Alaskans agree on those. I mean, most of the votes in the House and Senate are looking at Alaskan issues, and, they're overwhelmingly supportive by everybody. If the bills have been analyzed and massaged carefully so that they work for all Alaskans, there's mostly overwhelming support for those. So, and the term conservative has changed a lot. I mean, who would have thought that people would be using the word conservative and saying we're going to vote in oil tax changes that will send our budget into deficit for 15 years. I mean, to me, that's not a conservative. It's definitely not fiscally responsible when you're acting as the board of directors of the state. And so I opposed those oil tax changes. They weren't linked to any production. And, you know, my opponent said at the last debate that he would have voted for House Bill 110, which would have been, you know, at least 15 years of deficit spending and no linkage to increased investment in Alaska or increased production in Alaska. So
you're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Chris Story, along with Dave Webb, back up at the station. Our guest today is Representative Paul Seaton. We're going to find out why Paul's running again and what he has in store for the coming term if he's elected and wins your vote. So stick around, don't go anywhere. We've got our Blackwater Bend Mindbender question out there as well. Text 299-7653 with your answer. We'll be back with more on Alaska Matters. After this long winter, you deserve a break. Treat yourself to the joys of Alaska this summer and let Dutch Boy Landscaping take care of your lawn and yard work. Danny and his team are ready to make your property look its best. So when you see the bay is flat calm and the fish are biting, head out on the water and know your lawn's going to look its best all summer long. Dutch Boy Landscaping. Call Danny today at 235-7140. That's Dutch Boy Landscaping at 235-7140. Dutch Boy, your lawn's best friend.
It's a world apart in the heart of the city. Tucked into this beautiful 4-bedroom home on East Fairview Avenue in Homer are light and airy, spacious rooms, including a large family room, a 2-car garage, hot tub, playhouse, and a view. It's a quiet location for private enjoyment of everyday living. Deborah Lysick at Bay Realty is ready to show you this amazing 2,400 square foot home now. Just call 235-6183, 235-6183 for Bay Realty. And remember, when you need results, Bay Realty works.
For Radio Realty, I'm Chris Story. For the past 10 years, the value of gold has risen dramatically. Well, the same holds true for real estate. Yes, there are ups and downs overall, but both investments have increased in 10 years. The big difference? Leverage. Put the magic of leverage to work for you in real estate. Catch Radio Realty every Wednesday at 12:30 on KPEN 102 FM. Miss a minute? Podcast it from our website, radiorealty.us. You're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Chris Story, along with Dave Webb. Tim White has popped into the Alaska Matters studio here at the corner of West Hill and the Sterling Highway. He's kicked back, reading a newspaper, probably waiting for a free cup of Blackwater Bend espresso coffee. I don't know that that's going to happen. If he has the right answer to this question, possibly he'll go for free. Here's the question. Alaska Airlines apologized recently for alarming passengers with a handwritten note near a damaged portion of the tail wing of one of their jets. And the note read, "We know about this. OMG, who did this?" Or, "Still safe to fly." Text me 299-7653. Where is Paul Harvey when you need him? Speaking of Paul, we've got Paul Seaton with us, Representative Paul Seaton. And when last we left, we were discussing the difference between conservative and liberal, and does it apply in Juneau? Paul, my question to you is, why are you running again? What is it that you have left to accomplish in Juneau you think maybe one more session will do?
Well, I think that we're right in the midst of a very important issue on oil taxes and what we're going to look for the future of Alaska as far as fiscally responsible budgets. We're also looking at the gas line issues. I'm very pleased we accomplished the gas line for the lower peninsula here. That's, everything from Anchor Point south, and that was a big jump. But there are other areas of our peninsula that have been, which will be in the new district, which have been devoid of natural gas service, and so I plan to work to help them get access to natural gas as well.
Well, it's interesting you should bring up the gas line, because Tom Wagner is very defensive when it comes to the gas line. He talks about that he did not obstruct it for 2 years, and I heard him the other day talking about that, and he struck me as being, a little too defensive, and I think maybe it caught him by surprise that that he was going to end up with some hemorrhoids in his district, and so maybe he's going to have to walk back, to use that frightful term, some of his feelings or opinions towards the Homer area. Not asking you to weigh in on his comments relative to Homer and the gas line, or do we feel that we're special down here or not, but let me ask you this. Is he a jerk? Is he hard to work with? Or in the Senate, when you do deal with them in conference or what have you, is he a pretty good legislator?
Well, we don't work a whole lot together because he was in a different district. I worked mainly with Senator Stevens. I have worked with him on the elimination of the taxes on sand and gravel, and we worked well together on that. So
he just comes across, I shouldn't have asked you that, probably it's not fair to you, but he just comes across as, I don't know, like he's just, maybe, I need to have him on. I need to find out for myself. But anyway, I'm just always curious about that. You see these people with a lot of bravado. You're just a nice guy, Paul, so it's hard to not like you. I mean, you're just a nice guy. He comes across, though, as your typical, I don't know, just like, I deserve this seat, and by God, you should just elect me. So anyway, just thought I'd ask you that. Well, let me ask you this, because I think this is sort of the litmus test of what I would use as to whether or not somebody is of a political like mind with me, whether or not they be conservative or liberal. So I'm going to phrase this hypothetical. Let's say that one legislative season or session, there was no new laws passed, 10 old, outdated, innocuous laws are repealed, the budget's passed with a 5% cut across the board from the previous fiscal year. In your view, would that be a successful session or not? No new laws.
Well, I don't think that no new laws is really important because, we don't need many new laws. We are a young state, but there are some things that, are important to accomplish. Like this last session, I was able to get through the prohibition of sale of nicotine to minors. We didn't know until hearings a year ago that it was legal for companies to sell nicotine-laced toothpicks and nicotine-laced hand wipes to minors in our state. We don't need people becoming addicted before they're of the age to buy tobacco products.
I've never heard of a nicotine-laced toothpick. That's crazy.
They're being test-marketed in 4 states across the U.S. right now. Oregon's one of those. They've got bottles of water, which are Nico water, and it's got nicotine in that. They've got hand wipes, like these sanitation hand wipes that are nicotine-laced.
Oh, my Lord.
And the dissolvable breath strips?
Mm-hmm.
Of those that have the amount of nicotine of more than one cigarette each, and so those are products that we really don't want being sold to minors, and so we were able to get that in there. So that's if we were saying not pass that kind of law, I would say that those are some kind of things that are important. But I don't think that generally we need a whole bunch of laws.
Well, see, I guess to the heart of my question, and thank you for bringing up the nicotine toothpicks. I can see a new Alaska Matters trivia question coming. That's good. Man, I've never heard of that. But I guess to the heart of the question, Paul, is that I wonder if there isn't sometimes legislative inertia where somebody comes up with an idea, it gets drafted into a bill, and then we find ourselves legislating it or debating it and compromising back and forth on something that maybe just never should have been around to begin with, and we just end up passing laws or working on legislation. Like, for example, in my line of work with real estate, there was the sprinkler bill, which would have just been put a chokehold on new construction. It would have just been awful, and I'm thinking to myself, where did that start? It was probably somebody sitting around having a conversation and going, you know what, that'd make a good bill. Let's ensure the safety of people. And it starts with good intentions, and before you know it, you've spent a year debating it, and ultimately it gets shot down, thank goodness. But I just wondered how often that really happens, that we just spend so much time and money on things that, just out of inertia and just kind of get going and maybe should have never even started.
Well, about 2/3 of the bills that are introduced never pass the legislature. So anyway, you're right in that aspect. There's a bunch of things that come out as ideas, and then you have hearings, and then you find out from constituents whether it's a good idea or not.
Right.
You find out from the real estate people, man, this bill would be damaging, so the bill either gets modified in a way that doesn't negatively impact business but does help the people, or you just don't pass the bill, which is 2/3 of the hearings are really important. You got to remember that the legislature only passes a budget and we pass laws. In fact, there's a lot of onerous regulations in the state, but the only way the legislature has of overturning a bad regulation is to pass a statute.
Mm-hmm.
And so in some cases, it's people want to get rid of some of these regulations, but that's the only way you can do it is to pass a law overturning the regulation. That's a Supreme Court decision is that we couldn't do it by resolution. We had to do it by passing a law. So, generally, I'm definitely of the opinion that there are a bunch of minor bills that, are there that aren't important or aren't very important, except that they might be to constituents in one or two areas. And
right.
In that case, that's what you have the legislature for, and but mostly, the number of bills is not what's important. The
Okay.
significance of those to Alaska.
Well, touche. I like that. I think that's that makes a whole lot of sense. I just always like to quote Wesley Marks, the late Colonel Wesley Marks. He said at a city council meeting here in Homer one time that if this body sitting before me should pass no new ordinances this year, consider it a success. It was a citywide sales tax, and it was going to be just onerous, and it kind of got through that inertia and ended up, dying on the right there in the council chambers, never went any further. But I always thought that line was a good one, that sometimes I wonder if we don't just keep moving forward on something that should have just been stillborn. Hey, let's talk about social media. You've been in long enough now and running in campaigns long enough to have been pre and now post the advent of social media. Has it affected the way you, Paul Seaton, campaign in this cycle?
Well, I do quite a bit on the webpage, votepaulseaton.com, and I now have a Facebook page, which is also Vote Paul Seaton. But it's one more way to talk to folks. It's a different group of people you're generally talking to on Facebook versus the website versus radio or phone. And
interesting.
I try with my email newsletter. I publish every week during session to keep people informed, and so they can give me ideas on what things that are up in the committees that I serve on are going to impact them, so that I can make changes when they're in the committee. Those things are really important, and but pretty much the newsletter and the webpage are mostly what I work on. The others are kind of instantaneous, and I tend to take a longer vision and longer time to make sure that I fully analyze things and respond in ways that are careful and well thought out.
You're not twitting from the hip, then, shooting off from the hip with Twitter.
No, I could never quite see blogs and those kind of things, because for me that's just, you need to analyze, I need to analyze
right.
things more from different aspects.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm in a little, I get it. Okay. So I guess it's changed to a certain extent, but you use some caution when using social media per se, because it is instantaneous and you cannot get it back. Once it's out there, it does not come back. Let me ask you real quick in the short minute we have remaining here with Representative Paul Seaton, are you finding that there's any pushback on your incumbency, or is it pretty similar to other elections? I'm just curious as to whether or not the sort of national pushback we see happening with incumbents has reached you, or if people are embracing you as they did before.
No, I haven't felt any of that. So anyway, it's a new district. It includes about 35% new people that haven't dealt with me, but I've had continuous contact through most of the people that are involved in politics with the newsletter, and so that's keeping up to date and making sure that people understand what's being considered. I think it's really important, and then I listen to that feedback in the communities and listen to my constituents and make lots of amendments to make bills work for the people of Homer and previously Seward and Anchor Point and surrounding communities here.
All right. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck in the election. When is the primary exactly, and what is your homepage?
My homepage is Of course, www, but it's votepaulseaton.com, and the election's on the 28th, but you can start voting today at the city halls in Homer here.
Okay. All right, Representative Paul Seaton, looking for your vote. Thank you, Paul.
Great. Thanks for being on.
Absolutely. You have a great day. Well, there you have it. We now know what makes Paul tick a little bit more. I feel like I know Paul Seaton a little bit more, and hopefully you do too. Blackwater Bend sponsored this portion of the program, and I want to congratulate Megan and Jeff. That's it. You're both winners. You knew that Alaska Airlines apologized for alarming passengers with a written note with a Sharpie on the tail wing that was damaged, with a note that read, "We know about this." Oh, man. I've said it before. I'd have jumped off that plane so fast. And if you haven't seen the picture, Google it up. Check it out. It's like a broken chunk. It isn't just like a little dent or something. There's like a chunk missing. And it's a note that says, "We know about this." I don't think so. The election's on the 28th. If you're a registered Republican, I believe you can just jump into the Republican pool and register to vote in this primary, if you want to. Otherwise, we'll find out shortly thereafter if it's going to be John Faulkner looking for your vote in the general, or Representative Paul Seaton retains his bid for that. I want to thank Dave Webb for making this program possible, all of our great sponsors, and I want to thank you for making this show heard on your radio wherever you're listening. Our website is AdventureAlaskaRadio.com, AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. We'll be on Radio Realty tomorrow. Be sure to tune in there at 102.3 FM. I'm Chris Story, reminding you, Alaska matters, and so do you.
The Peninsula's home for unforgettable favorites. Great listening, 620 AM, KGTL, Homer.